She was 30 minutes late. I had already asked for the check. Then she walked in and everything changed. My name is Andre. I am 33 years old. I design residential architecture for a mid-sized firm in the city, which means I spend most of my days thinking carefully about how spaces make people feel, and most of my evenings alone in an apartment that I have never quite finished decorating, which my colleagues find either ironic or telling depending on their mood. I had not been on a date in 14 months. Not because I had decided against it, but because the last one had ended in a way that made the whole idea feel like a project I needed to rest from before starting again. Her name was someone I no longer needed to think about. We had been together for 2 years, and then one afternoon she had explained, with the careful language people use when they have rehearsed something, that she had realized she wanted a life that looked different from the one we were building. She was not unkind about it. That almost made it harder. My friend Kostya had suggested the blind date. Kostya believed that the solution to most problems was forward motion, and that sitting quietly in a well-designed apartment thinking about things was not the same as living. He said he knew someone, a friend of his wife, that he thought I would find interesting. He said interesting in the particular way he said things when he meant more than the word itself. I told him no 3 times over 2 weeks and then said yes because he was not going to stop asking and because some part of me that was tired of its own silence agreed with him. The restaurant was one of those modern places in the newer part of the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows, white tablecloths, small architectural arrangements of flowers on each table. The kind of place that takes itself seriously without quite relaxing into it. I arrived 7 minutes early because I always arrived early, found the table Kostya had reserved, and sat down facing the door. 6:30 came. Then 6:40. Then 6:45. The waiter came by twice with the particular patience of someone who had seen this before. I ordered a glass of water and then felt self-conscious about only ordering water, so I ordered a small plate of bread that I did not want. I checked my phone. Nothing. I looked at the door. People came and went. None of them were looking for me. By 7 o'clock I had made a quiet internal decision. I would finish the bread, leave a reasonable tip, and go home. I would call Kostya in the morning and tell him that forward motion had not worked and that I was returning to the apartment. I signaled the waiter for the check. And then the door opened. She came in quickly, the way a person moves when they have been moving quickly for a while and have not quite caught up with themselves yet. She was wearing a light blue dress, off the shoulder, her blonde wavy hair partially pulled back with pieces falling loose around her face. She had a small crossbody bag and the specific expression of someone navigating 3 emotions at once: hurry, worry, and something that might have been hope if the other 2 would give it enough room. She scanned the room. Her eyes found me. She stopped. For a moment she just stood there between the entrance and my table, looking at me with an expression I could not immediately read. Then she walked over, not rushing anymore, as if the rushing part was finished and something else had started. She stopped at the edge of the table and looked at me with those eyes, wide and honestly worried, and she said she was so sorry, that her bus had broken down and her phone had died and she had run 4 blocks in these shoes, which she immediately regretted mentioning because she looked down at the shoes and then back up with a small embarrassed expression. I told her it was fine. I told her I had only just asked for the check. She winced slightly and said that was fair. I told the waiter when he arrived with the check that we would actually be staying, and something in the waiter's expression suggested this was a better outcome than he had expected for the table. She sat down across from me. She put her bag on the chair beside her and pushed her hair back and took a breath that was clearly the first unhurried breath she had taken in some time. She looked at me properly then, the way a person looks at someone when the chaos is settled enough to actually see. And she said, quietly and with complete simplicity, that I had kind eyes. Not as a line. Not as the kind of thing people say at the beginning of dates to start things pleasantly. She said it the way a person says something they have just noticed and decided was true, without planning to say it out loud until it was already said. I did not know what to do with that immediately. I was not used to being seen that directly that quickly. I think I said thank you, which felt insufficient, but she had already moved on, picking up the menu with both hands and looking at it with the focused attention of someone who had not eaten since morning. Her name was Elena. She was 31, she worked as a translator, she spoke 4 languages with varying degrees of confidence. She had grown up in a city 300 kilometers away and had come here for university and never left in the way that sometimes happens when a place decides to keep you. She had a younger sister she called every Sunday and a cat named after a famous architect whose name she could not remember at that exact moment, and then remembered mid-sentence and seemed genuinely pleased about it. She talked the way some people talk when they have been quiet too long, not nervously, not to fill space, but with the ease of someone who had things to say and had simply been waiting for the right table to say them at. I found myself talking back in the same way. Not performing conversation but having it, which is a different thing entirely and rarer than it should be. We ordered food we mostly forgot to eat because the talking kept interrupting it. She laughed at things I said that I had not entirely meant to be funny, which made me want to say more things. She disagreed with me about something involving city planning and public green spaces and did it with such direct and well-reasoned conviction that I felt a specific kind of interest that I had not felt in a long time, the kind that is not about attraction alone but about wanting to understand how a person thinks. At some point, the restaurant had emptied considerably around us. The floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city at night now, lights replacing the earlier blue sky, the room warmer and quieter than it had been at 7 o'clock. She looked around and then back at me and said she could not believe she had almost missed this because of a bus. I said I had almost left because of a check. She looked at me with an expression that was partly disbelief and partly something warmer than that, and she said that would have been a very unfortunate series of public transport and restaurant decisions. I agreed that it would have been. We left together just after 10. The night air was cool and the street was quiet in the particular way city streets go quiet on weekday evenings when the dinner crowd has dissolved and not yet been replaced by anything else. We walked to the corner without deciding to, the way two people walk together when neither of them is ready for the direction to become a choice. She said she was glad Kostya had pushed the idea. I said I was glad she had run 4 blocks. She laughed. Then she looked at me the same way she had looked at me across the table when she first sat down, directly and without performance, and she said she meant what she said earlier. About the eyes. I told her she had said it like she meant it. That was why it had stayed with me all evening. She smiled. We exchanged numbers standing on the corner under a streetlight, and then she walked toward her stop and I walked toward mine, and the city held us both in its ordinary evening way, two people on separate paths that had briefly and significantly crossed over bad bread and an empty check in 30 minutes that almost became a different story entirely. On the way home, I thought about the 14 months of quiet, about how close I had come to leaving, about how the things that change your life almost never announce themselves as such when they are arriving. They come in through broken-down buses and dead phones and the wrong shoes for running, and they sit down across from you slightly breathless and say something honest before they have had time to decide whether to say it, and that honesty is the first true thing and everything else follows from it. We had dinner again 4 days later. And the time after that she showed me a park she loved that I had walked past 100 times without going into. I thought about what she had said about green spaces in the city. She had been right. I told her so. She accepted it without making anything of it, which I liked very much. Some connections begin with perfect timing and careful plans. And some begin with 30 minutes of empty chairs and a choice between leaving and staying that you almost make the wrong way. The difference between those two stories is sometimes nothing more than a waiter who has not yet walked away with the check. If something in your life is 30 minutes late right now, do not ask for the check yet. What is coming through that door might be exactly worth the wait.